Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet where we're not getting delayed into 2021. I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
Hey, everybody.
Ills.
Hello there.
Noah.
Are we even gonna make it to 2021?
Sah.
Come on, 2021. Come on, please, just do it for this year, please.
And Muzamil.
I like to think when you say Anne Moosmel, it's like Anne Danny DeVito as Frank. That's what I am.
Yeah, it's the traditionally it's given to the oldest person in the cast, the most tenured actor of the group.
Mm-hmm.
You're not that, but you are the last one. So
He's the youngest.
I think he is the youngest, yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm definitely the youngest of the.
100, yeah.
well, Brandon and Muzamil are the only ones that are more than one syllable. So you stick them at the beginning and the end, right?
Ooh.
Noah Safil's easy, just boom, all in one
Whoa,
movement.
whoa, whoa.
It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So as the name would imply, as the intro would imply, why not talk about a big news of the week, the thing that's been happening in video games, Halo Infinite. See you later. See you in 2021. When? We don't even know, but it's not hitting holiday. Not gonna be at launch. This was just sort of dropped. Just, hey, here we go. The Xbox account, the Halo account tweeted, hey, due to COVID, we're not going to be ready. Just that's the long and short of it, right? Phil Spencer talked a little bit in an interview after, talking about they had considered releasing it in parts, right? Having maybe multiplayer come first or single player come first, and then depending on what got finished, they opted to not do that and just release it all as one package. But I mean, that takes away Xbox's one first-party release of their launch. So, how does that make us feel about how it changes the start of next gen?
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, Halo was a really big franchise, and it's one of those games that had my main interest on. Even though like the rest of the series has been kind of terrible lately, I've been kind of hoping that this would be good. But seeing that it's going to be delayed till 2021 makes me kind of hesitant in actually spending some money into a new console, especially when they have like Game Pass and other ways to play their games as well.
Mm-hmm.
They are delaying their one launch game. That's crazy. Like, this is the game that they've been tying to their new system for over a year now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were like, Halo Infinite launching right alongside the next Xbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing that anymore. And they literally are not publishing any other games themselves, first-party wise. There's nothing coming from Xbox Game Studios day one, right?
Yeah, which is crazy to think about a console launch without the publishers of the console like publishing a game at the same day, you know?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like, yes, there's third-party games. You're still going to have your Assassin's Creed. Cyberpunk is still going to be there. Watch Dogs, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Microsoft themselves will not be releasing anything day one to go alongside. Like, they are going to upgrade a couple games, right? Like Forza Horizon 4 and Gears 5 and Sea of Thieves are all getting Series X enhanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with Game Pass and backwards compatibility, to be fair, you do, even day one, you have a very large library of games to play, just immediately, right?
Sure.
But I still think it's weird to not have, like, the big launch game, you know? And launches are typically fraught as is,
Mm-hmm.
right? But, but Halo Infinite was promised to be, like, you know, I mean, like Breath of the Wild, right? Like, imagine if, like, no, Switch didn't have Game Pass or backwards compatibility, but if Switch didn't launch with Breath of the Wild, it'd be a completely different story, right?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the
Yeah,
What are you
the
telling?
console-
1-2 Switch would have carried the console. Come on.
Yeah.
The people love milk. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because Microsoft has never. I mean, Halo is the thing that launched Xbox, right, all the way back then. But then Halo is Microsoft, like, for the 360 and the Xbox One, like, didn't have like huge day one launch lineups, right? But they had like a pretty diverse set, right? Even though none of them were like barn burners, they had like 7 games that were published by Microsoft Studios in the first week for Xbox One, right? That is, and clearly they made the decision like, hey, turns out like Loco Cycle and like Killer Instinct didn't like move the needle for us very much, right? But Halo does, so we're gonna go with Halo. But then suddenly now it's like, well, the problem is with putting all your eggs in one basket is if that basket gets upturned, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
And you know, like you said, COD will still be there, right? FIFA will still be there. The things that secretly are system sellers for people will be there, but the reason to buy an Xbox over a PS5 is now demonstrably different in a big way, right? Is now purely on the service side of things,
Yeah,
which
it's almost entirely on the back of Game Pass right now. Of course, the games will be coming throughout 2021, right? And I will say, I like when I first saw the news, my gut reaction was this is a disaster. I still lean towards that, but I do think no matter what, both the Xbox Series X and PS5 will sell out this holiday, right? I don't know if either of these systems are going to have trouble selling at all, at least for till the end of the year. You know?
There is a group of hardcores that will buy because it's a new system, not because of anything on it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, in that sense, I don't think they'll have a problem necessarily at launch. I'm curious to see what happens throughout next year. That'll be where it really gets interesting, right? But also, I think this is good news for the game itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it gives them more time to actually iron out a lot of the problems that they've had.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if they just, because they weren't like 100% on it, obviously, they just didn't want. They wanted the best game possible, and they didn't want like a game that might not be, at its best to represent their brand new console.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
it's okay. It's okay.
Microsoft has been a leaky ship for a while now, right? And there was, like Schreier articles and other articles that are sort of like, hey, Halo Infinite, like early this year, right before COVID popped off, it was sort of like Halo Infinite, like, it's hitting some rocky waters, right? There's a lot of different people working on it, and sort of it's hard to feel how the ship is going, right? And I think that the pandemic took Halo Infinite from a game that, like, if we really buckle down, we can get it out by holiday to this is completely unfeasible. No way we can get this done. And like you sort of said, Brandon, like if Halo Infinite is the one system you're associating your game with, and also it comes out in a Master Chief Collection type of state, that's a huge disaster. That's bigger. That's worse than delaying the game, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, like, yes, this is the game that they were trying to launch to, but I also think, like, Halo Infinite is a very important game for the Xbox brand as a whole. I think they have to get this one right, because Halo is your premier franchise, right? And it's been in a rut for quite some time now, right? The way they were messaging this game from the beginning was like, we're starting from fresh, we're looking back at what made Halo great, but at the same time we're reinventing things. This game basically, I think they'll be fine no matter what happens, but I do think a lot of the reputation of their first party right now is very much rely on Halo Infinite. Like, I think this game has to be a great game, because Phil Spencer keeps making these promises about how they're working on their first party, and we're seeing the fruits of that, right? But I still think like Halo's your crown jewel, right? Like it's just something that you have to get right. Like, if your biggest game is not good, then how can you have confidence in the rest of their products?
Exactly why. Yeah, exactly why I think it's better that they do this than have an unfinished or rushed product at the launch of their console, because then it will just be talked about forever, and it will just leave a bad taste in everybody's mouths. And I think they learned from last gen, the launch of a console can easily leave a bad taste in people's mouths, and then affect the rest of the generation, no matter what you do. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that part of it too is because, like you said, Spencer has been saying a lot of words about, hey, we're working on first party, right? But I would say, and if you look at like the amount of announcements, right, they had a lot of first party announcements at that game showcase, right? But Xbox is, in terms of the publishers, the biggest has the biggest lack of identity to their first party of any of the console manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
Nintendo has a really strong set of IPs. They're understood to be family friendly, right? Like, and sort of just they're focusing on the fun, the game part of video games, right? Sony now is, you know, they've a lot of their older studios are now getting bigger budgets, bigger, you know, like more cinematic style games, right? Like, you know, Sucker Punch makes Ghost of Tsushima because Naughty Dog had such a good last gen, right? And they saw this is what people on our platform respond to. Whereas, like, because they've been acquiring so many different studios and bringing them into the fold and trying to let them have their own identity, there isn't like Microsoft first party, right? There isn't like, oh, this is what Xbox is, right? Like, but the only time where there was Xbox Gears Halo. I mean, excuse me, was Forza Gears Halo,
Forza Gears
right?
Halo, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
For,
like
the 360.
yeah, and so like Forza isn't going to do it, right? And Gears is just put out Gears 5 a year ago, right? So it's on Halo in this moment, you know, to reassert an identity for their first party lineup, right? That they're associating with Game Pass. You know, that's still the biggest value proposition of Game Pass is getting these $60 games day one. And so
What's Sony putting out at launch?
Miles Morales, Spider-Man,
Okay.
which is frankly, they could not have predicted it, but what an amazing bet, because Miles Morales, as we said, is a 1.5, right? They're not trying to reinvent the Spider-Man wheel with that game. So I imagine it's much easier to scale that game in a COVID world than Halo Infinite was, right? And still be able to hit launch, right?
Yeah. I was just wondering if they had like a knockout blow at the first up, and I don't think Miles Morales is necessarily that, but yeah, I'm just wondering like how far behind Xbox is going to be at launch.
Yeah, I mean, and that remains to be seen, right? Because I think both of as we mentioned, when both those companies did their conferences in the last month, they showed off the next 3 years of video games, right? And who knows when those games come out in that 3-year span, basically.
Mhm.
And so, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll see how it all turns out, right? But it's you know, the obvious comparison is Breath of the Wild, right? Of terms of like launching a system with a game. And like Moo said, it would be very weird if that skipped launch. And so we'll see how it goes. But that's not the only thing. They did also confirm, by the way, in case you're wondering, the Series X is launching in November.
Well, that's expected.
No,
It was expected.
no,
And also a controller box got leaked, and the heavily discussed weaker version of the next generation system is the Series S. That's what it says on the box. It just says Xbox, and on the back it says compatible with Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. So
it's just exactly what everybody guessed.
that's exactly what we thought. And sometimes you don't want to reinvent the wheel. It makes sense.
Hopefully we see that soon. It's kind of crazy that we haven't seen it yet. We're in August. These things are launching in November. We still don't have price.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest fucking console launch of all time. It's just so different and weird.
Yeah. Strange things are happening here. But that's I would say the biggest like immediate piece of news for the week. But what could potentially be the biggest news for like all of tech is the looming war between two multinational billion-dollar corporations. That's right, Epic is facing off against Apple and Google, which is, I mean, you're swinging at the big boys there. But they're using Fortnite to do that, essentially. So you may remember years ago when they launched the Epic Game Store, Epic complained a lot about the 30% cut that platform holders take. They're still mad about that. And so they just updated Fortnite on all platforms, including on the mobile versions, to say, hey, you can either pay through the platform holder, or you can pay directly to us. And if you just pay directly to us, you get 25% off, 25% more, basically. Right?
Well, also specifically what it is. So on consoles and PC and Mac, it's exactly the same. You're actually paying. There's no. But the mobile version,
and we'll get to
iOS
why
and Android,
that's split. Yes, but yeah.
Yeah, they added a direct payments option. But even on the other platforms, so on the mobile direct payments, and then just for every purchase
on all of consoles,
on the other platforms, consoles and PC, you get 20%. It's 20% off what you would normally pay. So 1,000 V-Bucks used to be $10. now it's $8, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you pay through the App Store and Google Play, you have to pay the original V-Bucks price.
And Apple has come in saying, literally in the terms of the agreement, when you are on the App Store, you can't do this. We said you can't. You have to go through us. You cannot do through your own end of things. So within the day, Fortnite was off the App Store, and then within the day, it was off the Google Play Store. The minute it was down, Epic's like, we already have a lawsuit prepared. We're filing a lawsuit.
Wow.
And had a pre-prepared parody of Apple's 1984 ad back in the day.
Yeah.
With 1980 Fortnite, which is simply too cute for its own good.
I mean, this whole
that's
thing was
one way to
clearly
describe
it was clearly like this planned rollout of how they were going
Yes.
to take on Apple and Google, right? Specifically Apple, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, they had this all planned out. They are. I know they're getting a lot of flack because a lot of people are saying they're weaponizing these children who are playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
So-
Because they kind of are. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they're waging a legal war and a public opinion war at the same time, right? And they're
Yes.
trying. That's what they're trying to do, just straight up.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is just watching people take sides on like just defending billion-dollar corporations. It's like, why bother? Just let them. Whatever happens, happens. But I don't know. It's weird to me
Let
that people
them
are like
fight.
taking sides on this. Like, because I get where both of the sides are coming from in this situation. You know, I'm just watching.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is. Sorry, go ahead, Seth.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, like, did they just start beef now, or did they just start taking action now because of, like, that fucking EU antitrust investigation, or...
I mean, that's a good question because that I mean that did happen this week, right? So
Yeah.
who knows? I
'Cause you
mean,
mentioned
I
that they've
imagine
been
you don't
complaining
make.
about it for a while now. So I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
it's like, is this because the other shit's been happening? Is why they think this is a good time to start this fucking crazy war that they're going to go for?
Sure, I don't know. I mean, and
I
you know,
just
I'm
think
obviously none of us are.
Fortnite's
Well, Saf
so-
actually works in law, but we're not lawyer. We're not business lawyers. We don't know, right? But I've read business lawyers, and they're like, hey. Epic, like, good luck. This is an uphill battle, right? Which is, I think, why they're
Yeah.
also doing the.
I mean, but
Public
that's why they're utilizing their fan base, right? They
Yes.
are they're turning this into a PR war mainly, right? I think they know
Yeah.
they're going to lose the lawsuits, right?
I mean, literally in the text of the lawsuit, they're like trying to like butter up the reader because I was reading it, where they're like, "Listen, we're doing fine. We don't need this cut, okay? We're not taking food out of our mouths, but we just want to help
They don't.
everyone else on the App Store. All right, everyone else is also getting this cut, and that includes smaller companies." And you're like, "Okay, all right. If you
So noble.
you can say that if you want. I don't believe you."
Yeah, they're super going, like, they're not suing for any extra money.
I mean, but also they don't need the money really. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
I will say though, I mean, first of all, there's two thoughts I had about this. I mean, I'm not really rooting for anyone here. Like, fuck them all, right? They're all making
Sure.
massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
My first thing was I was surprised that they did not add the direct payments option to the console versions, right? But those versions still got the discount, which either implies that they are okay taking a hit on the console versions to wage this war against Apple and Google, or Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo have all agreed to reduce their cut for V-Bucks. Either
Which
way, that is
I think
fascinating.
it's that second one. Yeah. Because, I mean, I was going to mention, I think the biggest differentiator, you mentioned this to me before, Moose, right? About what's the difference between a console maker versus, like, Apple or whatever is Epic also makes the most popular game engine on the planet. And that it's most frequently used on consoles.
Yeah.
Right?
So I imagine Epic has a lot of leeway with the big three, right? In particular because it's like they own the biggest engine, they license out the biggest engine, and this is the biggest game. And so Fortnite is a bigger deal for consoles than it is for mobile, right? Apple and Google are still swimming in money without Fortnite, right? That's a blip in terms of revenue from the App Store and the Play Store.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Fortnite is the biggest game in the world. Not having the biggest game in the world on your platform is a big blow to your video game platform. Right? So they just have a lot more leverage with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. And that's fascinating that even still though, like this is unprecedented, right? Like no one has been able to. 30% has been a standard in the industry for so long, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple being able, I mean, Epic being able to negotiate out of that is crazy. But the other thing, and this is, I think, the interesting thing about this lawsuit is that this goes kind of beyond the realm of video games.
Yes.
But if Epic wins this lawsuit, this changes the game on what is and isn't allowed on the App Store. Specifically, App Store, iOS, because iOS famously is a walled garden, right? Fortnite, even though they took it off the Play Store, you could still download the APK from... you could find the APK file and download it to your phone, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, Epic has an official available way to download it without... and they can circumvent the Play Store and officially give you Fortnite on Android, right? That is not the case on iOS. You cannot... Right, as of now, because they took it off the App Store... There is no way to play Fortnite on an iOS device. But if Epic wins this lawsuit, this totally changes, like, the walled garden is coming down, you know? Like, this
Which
totally...
is a huge deal because, I mean, smartphones are assumed you have a smartphone in 2020, and we're going to base your life around the idea that you have access to all this information at all times, right?
Yep.
And which is way bigger than video games, rather than just consoles. And so, like it's wild that, I mean, who knows? I don't expect Epic to win, right? But if they do win, it'll be where this huge shift for like everything you can do with probably the most important like technological device in your life. Like, the change will have happened because the video game company wanted more of a cut. That's weird. That's a weird world we live in, you know? But yeah, so I mean, this is going to take years, probably.
Yeah. I don't see how they can win if they made it, you know, if it's just part of the store, you know, the laid out rules and regulations of those stores is they're going to take that cut. They knew what they were getting into, you know, they agreed to it, and now they've changed their mind and tried to weasel a way around it.
It's not necessarily that simple though, like, right? Like Microsoft, for example, in the 90s, got hit with a lot of antitrust regulation. And so, I mean, and this is just a whole legal argument that's completely probably...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
that's above our pay grade, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, it is worth noting that, like, Apple has such big control over the mobile market, which is inarguably the most important market in our society, right?
Yeah.
Like everything revolves around, everything in our society right now revolves around mobile phones, right? And so Apple having that much power, the government can absolutely step in and be like, actually, this is a bad thing. Whether they do that or not, who knows? But there's definitely precedent for it, though. It's not as simple as, oh, well, you're on their platform, it's their rules, you have to bow down to them. It's not necessarily that simple. So,
yeah, sometimes like government could step in and just try and break them up if necessary and just split them into...
and say, okay, you did make these rules, but these rules are bullshit, so fuck, and we're gonna just say, forget your rules.
And they can like divide them up if necessary, you know, like they just kind of like, okay, this particular type of group will be in charge of like the game side of the mobile market, this particular charge of group will be on the phone side, etc. Like BT would be a good example of that, whereas like the government has stepped in and just kind of like separated a lot of their services in terms of like internet, etc. So they might just do that with Apple if they wanted to, but that's up to the US government, really.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll, like you said, we'll have to see if they intervene, if they won't. Right. Either way, it'll be. This is going to have ramifications long term, right? However this goes, one way or the other. But it'll be interesting. And hey, I mean, I guess good for everyone on console. They just got a 20% discount. Congrats to you.
That's cool.
V-Bucks just got cheaper.
VR just got cheaper.
The parents are like, man, my credit card bill's going down this month, man.
I've heard some stories from some parents in my own life that are just like, oh boy, this freaking Fortnite is killing me, especially on phones, because your credit card saves on there. If you're not careful, you're doomed. Watch out. But the another piece of news that we had this week that was sort of the result of stuff that was all related to rumors. Yoshinori Ono is out at Capcom. If you don't know who that is, Ono is credited as sort of, he's been the head of Street Fighter for a very long time and eventually just became the head of fighters outright at Capcom. Sort of headed up a lot of like the Street Fighter 4 boom, right, for them. But in more recent years, Capcom fighters have struggled. And through an insider named Desgolem, who has had a very good track record with Capcom in specific, said that the thing that sort of tipped it over was that Street Fighter 6 was in development problems and then had to be basically delayed a year because playtesters and the development team didn't like the game they were making, which also led to Street Fighter 5 getting an additional season when it was not supposed to, which is now happening in 2020.
Oh,
but
that's fine.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, you know, just interesting because one, it's an end of an era for, you know, a guy that has, in the hardcore scene, been the face of a lot of, you know, he's been beloved among the FGC, right? As, you know, he would come out with his little Blanca toy every single time because he just loves Blanca a lot, right? But also, it puts into sort of contrast, like, hey, Capcom is, like, viewed as, like, the granddaddy of fighters, but they're kind of in the weakest position of any of the big fighting game developers.
Weird.
So was he, like, pushed out, or what happened there?
Seemingly, seemingly they demoted him to basically, look, you're just the esports guy. You're not actually working on game development anymore. Yeah. And I guess he just decided, well, I'm better off just resigning.
He took the demotion as an invitation to leave. Yeah.
That sounds like disrespect right there.
Yeah.
But like, you know, Ono is a very beloved character in the FGC, right? Mm-hmm. He shows up at EVO, you know, we love him. But I mean, I think it's worth noting, like, I'm actually shocked that after the complete disaster that was Street Fighter 5, and you can say, oh, it's in a better place or whatever. No, Street Fighter 5 was a disaster. It is what it is.
At launch,
right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Not even at launch, though. Like, you know, sheer sales numbers wise, it's such a far cry from any other fighting game this generation, basically, right? Yeah. You know, it sold worse than Dragon Ball FighterZ, it sold worse than Tekken 7, than Mortal Kombat 11, than Smash Ultimate. This is the game that used to be the king of the genre, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's not even close to that anymore. You know, it never truly rebounded. And you could say gameplay-wise it's in a good place, or they're making a lot of money through microtransactions, or whatever, DLC, but I think the fact of the matter is Street Fighter 5 is in the worst place it's been in a long, long time. You know, the Street Fighter franchise is just in a bad place right now. And I can't believe after Street Fighter 5, they somehow still fucked up Street Fighter 6. You know? Fucked it up so badly that they had to reshuffle things, that they had to give Street Fighter 5 yet another season, that they had to completely, you know, can Ono. You know? Like, it's... I think that if Street Fighter 6... And I think Ono leaving that kind of does confirm this idea, right? But, like, if Street Fighter 6 was in a bad position, I think Ono had to go. I think it's as simple as that. Like, you cannot have two major fuck-ups in a row.
Do we know what's wrong with Street Fighter 6 right now?
They said that the main thing that the Golem said, of course, so, you know, rumor and innuendo a little bit, but there was a lot of team mechanics focused stuff that was happening in Street Fighter 6 that he sort of pushed for. And that was among the things that, like, got a lot of focus, but then, like, playtesters said, like, I don't want this in a Street Fighter game. I don't like this.
Marvel vs. Capcom?
Sort of, yeah.
Oh.
And, which, I mean, that's another game that should be mentioned, is, like, Marvel is the biggest franchise in the world, and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite bombed mega hard, right? Well, he was helping head up fighting games at Capcom. But yeah, so that seemingly team mechanics was part of it, right? And just a general, the game feel people just said wasn't enjoyed by people, right? Yeah. And I think part of that is fighting games have actually progressed a lot since Street Fighter 4, right? In terms of, like, because there's a lot of heavy discussion in the fighting game community of, do you oversimplify fighting games, right? Does the simplifying of fighting game actually help the market of people that want to buy it? Whoever, right? But in terms of presentation of games, they've come a long way, right? Dragon Ball FighterZ, not just because it's a Dragon Ball game, but, like, it's the most accessible Arc System Works game, and I think that's tied into how well it's done, right? Like, people understand how to play Smash Ultimate, they understand how to play Mortal Kombat in a more intuitive way than what was the standard 20 years ago with Street Fighter 2. And in a lot of ways, Street Fighter is still building off that foundation that is 20 years old now, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem.
Also, as to what was wrong with Street Fighter 6, now I cannot confirm the veracity of this information.
Do we have a hot leak?
A couple hours before Dusk Golem put this on Twitter, someone kind of sent me the same information in my DMs.
We're breaking news.
Breaking news.
Leaking DMs. What the fuck?
This is getting secret messages.
But so the fact that it matched up exactly to what Dusk Golem said is what makes me even give credence to this. Again, I don't shoot the messenger here. Besides the idea, so I was told the same thing, that it had to do with team fighting mechanics and blah blah blah, and that Ono was demoted to esports man, and supposedly the person they put in charge is Midori Yuasa, who is a Monster Hunter alumni.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, it worked. I forget for what reason. I think she later on became head of esports and is centered in LA. So I'm curious about if they're moving her back to Osaka, or Street Fighter is going to be developed in America maybe next. Who knows? That'll be weird. But then what I was also told is that once again, though, like with Street Fighter 5, they were focusing entirely on like the FGC elements, right? Which is funny because supposedly that's what was so wrong with this game, right? But once again, just like with Street Fighter 5, they were apparently trying to skimp out on everything that wasn't the gameplay. So,
it's like, again,
but it looked like a very budget game.
Doing. Yeah. That's what they should be doing. They should focus on the gameplay, but they shouldn't just leave it bare bones like fucking Street Fighter 5 was. Jesus Christ.
I think that was a big problem with Street Fighter 5 though, right? It was so bare bones. Like they only focused on the gameplay, right? Which is that like yes, gameplay is the most important thing, but you can't just do that, right?
Yeah.
I do think you need to make a nice looking game, something that doesn't look so grody, right? I think you need to have a game filled with content, and seemingly Street Fighter 6 was just going to make all the same mistakes Street Fighter 5 did. So
because I mean, if you look at like
if you are gonna do that with the gameplay and just focus entirely on that, and then based on player feedback build it up into something, then release it as early access or like something like that, rather than as a full package and make it feel like abysmal.
Yeah, I mean, that was the weird thing about Street Fighter 5 is that it felt like an early access game that launched at $60. You know, like because I mean, Smash has obviously like the characters, but also Smash is like its own franchise now, and like it has such a wealth of modes, right? Like NetherRealm has mastered a story mode in a fighting game, right? Like they're not like great stories, but like they're engaging, and I play through them, right? They're one of the only games where like I buy a fighting game for a single player, right? And Tekken and Dragon Ball FighterZ are both showers, right? They both like look very good, and like it's like, how can you not look at any of your competitors and be like, well, we're gonna take none of those, like we're not gonna take any of those notes. And I'm sure it's harder than just that, but like...
like in the past, like Capcom has a long history of like coming out with fighting game after fighting game. Like they were like in a period where they were in direct competition with themselves, essentially. Like they had like 7 different franchises of fighting games. They had Darkstalkers, they had Street Fighter, all these different games. And they kind of shot themselves in the foot in some situations.
Kind of cannibalized themselves, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but like nowadays, like they have, instead of themselves, they have everybody else that they have to stand up. Like everybody else has like their own different, unique fighting games. Like Tekken obviously is like vastly different from Street Fighter, both mechanics, feeling, movement, everything. And you got Smash, which is like its own unique thing into its own too. But it does like they just, I don't know. It's like they have to really focus on like what people loved about like the Street Fighter series in general. Yeah. And it's, I don't know.
Big Hadouken.
Goodwill, yeah. The will was there. Like they had the right idea with the gameplay, because that's what a lot of like, and especially like in the competitive scene, that's what they enjoy the most. Like you said, the gameplay, make sure it's like almost frame perfect. It feels like good, like parrying, dodging, blocking, special move inputs, the frames in between, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But you need to also like color it, make it look nice and presentable and feel good.
Yeah, and it's also weird even in the scope of Capcom, right? Because like this gen has been defined by like, hey, we're doing RE2 we're gonna like make RE2 look really good, right? Monster Hunter World, we're gonna make Monster Hunter like a looker, right? You know?
Yeah.
Well, that Monster Hunter World was another, like, was a really good looker, but it's also, they had a lot of quality of life painted into it. Like, if you go back to the older Monster Hunter games, they are like, they do not feel right after you played Monster Hunter World. Like, it feels like you're going way backwards into like the medieval age or something.
Yeah. And it's so weird that all those other big franchises have got that treatment now, but Street Fighter is still in this own little corner, right?
Right.
Where like, because in Street Fighter 5, the thing was like, I mean, I don't know if I ever believed the thing that like they wouldn't have made Street Fighter 5 if Sony wasn't there, right? But clearly they were not giving it a big budget, right? If they were like looking to have outside publishers help fund it,
not
right?
give budget to like a big series like that? I don't know.
Street Fighter is one of your biggest franchises, and like, it's so baffling to me that the way they've treated it, and it's like the one exception, right? Like everything else Capcom has done this generation since the launch of Street Fighter 5 has done it incredibly well, right?
Yeah,
Resident Evil 7,
series,
Resident Evil 2, Monster Hunter World, Devil May Cry 5, right? Like all these games are doing so well.
I mean, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is a...
Well,
that's...
but
yeah,
it's like
that one
fighting
is
games.
even worse.
That's what's been going wrong, is just their fighting games.
They're fighting games, yeah.
And so I do think putting the people who are... Now it's not just one person, it's multiple people now who were previously working on the Monster Hunter franchise are coming in to take charge at the fighting game division at Capcom. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good sign, because I think they get, like... Because I do think, like Noah mentioned, like the biggest things about Monster Hunter are the graphics and then the accessibility, right? And those are the two things I think Street Fighter is so missing. Is it looks bad, and it's so designed for the hardcores at the expense of more casual players.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think
100%
the idea that you
felt
can,
that
an accessible game is not inherently at odds with a deep, robust game that has a high skill.
No, you can have a game that's accessible and a very high skill ceiling.
Yeah,
like it's possible to do it. They've done it before.
I think Smash Ultimate's an example of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Like, because with Smash for so long, there was this struggle between like the more like hardcore and the more casual or like identity that both of that game has, and I think Ultimate strikes the right balance, right? For like, and that's just. You can see it and you just wish it for because I think we all like Street Fighter, right? Like like at least on on a certain level, you're just like, man, you want to see like the granddaddy of fighting games be doing well. Yeah. And
I've always thought like Street Fighter is Capcom's like flagship franchise, but is it now like Resident Evil at this point?
I mean,
technically, they have like
Monster
20 flagship franchises. Yeah, they have.
Really? Monster Hunter?
For sure.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter
World is their best-selling first-party game ever.
If you count sales in Japan, I mean, they don't...
No, not even Japan. Monster Hunter World is the best-selling game made in Japan that isn't made by Nintendo. Just straight up. More than Final Fantasy, more than Street Fighter, more than Resident Evil. Like, Monster Hunter World is the best-selling game made in Japan that Nintendo didn't make. Asterisk.
That isn't named Animal Crossing.
But at least the best-selling third-party Japanese game.
Yeah.
And I should say, not sales in Japan. I mean, games made by a Japanese company, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. The game sold 16 million units and is still selling. Like Monster Hunter is king right now.
Good. But also Resident Evil, but like it's worth mentioning, Els, you aren't wrong to say RE is like RE4 and like RE5 and RE7 are like still selling like 250,000 to like higher a quarter, right? Like RE7 has had insane legs, right? Which means that like
they do re-release the Resident Evil games like 5 times a year, so
sure, yeah, but like RE7's only on this console, right? And it launched. And a lot of people, and it had a lower launch than previous games because RE6 had such a bad reputation for it, right, beforehand, like in the general public view. But RE7 has had such good word of mouth that it's been able to sell still 4 years later, right?
Like it just this last quarter, it sold another 400,000 copies. You know,
Yeah,
another 400,000 copies, and is now like after Resident Evil 5 is the best-selling Resident Evil game now. You know,
yeah.
though
So, like-
RE2 is about to pass that, which is to say, you know, like Resident Evil 7 is about to, you know, is doing really well, and then RE2 is doing even better than that. You know, Resident Evil is in such a good place, and that just shows you like Capcom right now is killing it undeniably. Right, like they're not putting out many games a year, but the games that they do put out are just massive hits. Right, but not their fighting games.
Yeah, maybe they just past their prime, like in terms of fighting games, because that's what they were most known for in the past. Now they're just probably just burnt out.
They probably just need new blood, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's 20
Bring
years you're
back
going to go through different
Darkstalkers.
eras.
Bring back Darkstalkers.
That's the 15 million seller, Darkstalkers. We found it. Felicia, she sells 10
Yes.
million by herself.
Yes.
Fuck that.
I like the succubus girls better. I'm more of a you know, there's
You're
two
Morgan?
of them. I can't remember both of
You're a
them.
Morgan
Morgan
person.
Lilith.
Yeah.
Lilith, Morgan and Lilith. There we
Yeah.
go.
So there it is. That's Capcom. Bring back rival schools. That is that's the news. But of course, news. Who cares? Really, we're all here for the list.
The last-
List.
Follow along as every week we add a game to an ever-growing list of over 203 games, 204 to be specific. Wow, how about
An
that?
error-growing list?
Error-growing list. Well, there have been errors along the way, but we continue to add. Last week I added a game, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker. We got 55 on the list.
What?
This. Glad you found out, Noah.
Oh, jeez.
Where'd you want it in hell?
No.
Maybe. Captain Toad, he's a bastard. Saf, what are you adding this week?
Well, I failed to add it last time. So, since we got the relevant people here, I want to add Dragon Quest XI, the enhanced version.
Okay, Dragon Quest 11
I'm out.
Echoes of an Elusive Echoes of Elusive Age.
Definitive
Fuck,
edition.
I can't say this.
Dragon
Echoes of
Quest
an Elusive Age S
Definitive.
Definitive Edition.
Yeah.
What a title.
And coming this holiday is Dragon Quest 11 S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition Xbox Edition.
So which edition should I get if I actually want to play the game?
S. The one that's on Switch.
The Switch, the
Slash-
Switch one,
one.
or if you, it's coming on Game Pass
Dragon
in
Quest
December
11
if you want
S.
to wait.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
I'm going to look for.
Yeah,
December it'll be on Game Pass.
yeah. So you can, if you want to wait just for that, you can do that. So Saf talked about Dragon Quest.
Yep. Latest in a long running series of RPGs, JRPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Quest XI.
The granddaddy of them all.
Indeed, it is the
The
granddaddy of them all.
RPG.
And it is kind of a return to form for them. Because the last couple of games, they tried to change things up a little bit. In
Mhm.
terms of, like, 9 was more create your own character. And as a result, it wasn't really character focused. 10 was an MMO RPG. So that was way different from your typical Dragon Quest. They had Dragon Quest Builders. And then this baby came out. Which is basically just your standard Dragon Quest JRPG. A solid story, great characters, surprisingly decent voice acting as well, and incredible environments to explore in regards to places that are based around, that take influence from real life places as well, and you can see those influences in the different towns that you visit, and it's incredible.
Mhm.
It is still a traditional JRPG. It's still traditionally turn-based, although you can move your characters around a little bit in the battles
For no reason.
for no.
Yeah, you can just turn that off. You can just go back to the normal lineup for if you want to.
I never really understood that, and I never really got like any sort of advantage. It's just there. I was
No.
like, okay.
It's
But,
it is the most like we're gonna do this for the West, but like no one's mind was changed by the fact you just can walk around in this little ring, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but regardless of that, it's still a great JRPG with a great cast of characters, and each one with their own story to tell. And it is nice to see a classic come back in this way, in HD, And they also had this cute little element in the enhanced version that they never really had in the original release, where they had chapters, or not chapters, side quests, I guess, where they're all based in 2D, where it's just classic Castlevania and going through, I believe, like classic Castlevania. Dragon Quest.
yeah.
Classic Dragon Quest maps, and just going through their stories in order to like unlock. I guess I can't remember what the unlock was. I remember beating it, but I can't remember what it was that you got. And also the side quests in there as well is pretty phenomenal, and the extra stuff that you have to do is actually quite challenging and pretty fun as well if you're committed to completing those challenges.
Yeah. I mean,
this game is fucking gorgeous, first of all. It's really, really good. It looks great. The characters are fantastic. Like, some of the best characters, except maybe Jade. That was the only one I didn't like that very much. But every single one has, like, a very good, like, emotional arc to them. They have fantastic scenes. Serena and Veronica and Rob or Rab are some of my favorites. Fucking amazing.
Love you, Sylvando.
Yeah, Sylvando's pretty good too.
Sylvando is great. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty a classic story. You know, good versus evil, but it has really strong moments.
Yeah.
Throughout.
Yeah.
It really sells it.
Yeah. I mean, I talked a lot about Dragon Quest the year it came out, right? Because it was my game of the year besides Smash Ultimate, right? But Dragon Quest, we mentioned before, right? Like Saf said, it's building up the base of a game that's 30 years ago, though it has actually modernized in a lot of ways, especially with 11. There's a lot of ways that the game doesn't like frustrate you with like old things that shouldn't be there anymore, right?
Yeah.
But like you touch on, one of my favorite things about Dragon Quest is they have a really good structure to their stories, which is essentially there's the wider structure, right, of the big evil, right? But really most of the stories are contained to the village you're in, right? And they all have a beginning, middle, end. And so it makes playing through the RPG, even though the game is almost 100 hours, really, it doesn't feel it, right? Because every time you can do a play session, you can essentially do one of those villages and get a beginning, middle, end of a story for a character, right? And that adds to the world, right? When you get to the end and you're fighting the big bad, it matters more because all these places you've been to have had significant developments, and all these party members have had significant developments, right? The game is just, and I think the thing that I talk about a lot with Dragon Quest is it's a very warm video game. Like, it's just, there's a real affection for the characters you can feel in the writing, right? No one's like being judged or like being like treated like harshly, right? Like there are genuinely sad things that happen in Dragon Quest, right? Especially in 11. Like there's like the mermaid storyline, which without saying too much.
Yeah, they're so good. Oh my god, they're so good.
God, yeah.
But because that's how it gets you, right? Is it sort of like this world is so vibrant, like you said, and like it captures so much of like the Toriyama art style of like all the main characters and all of the monsters, right? That when it does get serious, you're sort of like it knocks you even more back, right? Because you sort of get lulled in to this very inviting
feeling
world.
Of safety, basically.
Yeah.
And then it takes it all from you.
And so it's really, really cool. I think it's my favorite Dragon Quest. I go back and forth between it and 8, but I love both of them a whole lot.
Yeah, I've only played like 3 of them, and this is my favorite.
Yeah.
For sure. I think Definitive Edition adds a lot of player-friendly aspects that like smooths the experience so much more. Like you get teleporting. You can teleport to towns like very early in the game. Yeah. You can summon your mount, your horse, like from almost anywhere. You can forge weapons and armor from almost anywhere. You can change your skills from almost anywhere and reselect them.
Yeah,
I think you can do that, right? Or
yes,
you have to go to a priest for that.
Yeah.
And you can change characters from almost anywhere. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
That was all in the definitive and not in the original release?
I believe so.
Some of that stuff was there, but you had to like go to specific places to do them, right? Whereas it's more available
this
to you.
This was more streamlined. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I want to mention briefly about the additions, because there's the midway point of the game, basically, right, where they added a bunch of party member specific vignettes that you play through as them, right?
Yes.
Which I think are super good. They add a ton to those characters, right? But
I mean, most of them are super good.
Yeah, sure.
Jade's not so much.
To get where Jade has to go for the story of the original game, doesn't work, right?
I think Jade is just a failure as a character overall, but whatever.
I like Jade, but
She's all right. She's not as explored as like Rab.
Sure.
Rab is a god.
Rab is great. But I also really like Zach mentioned the going back to the older games, because the time travel is involved in this game, right? As the name might imply, Echoes of Elusive Age. And it's like you're fixing old Dragon Quests, right? Which if you hadn't played those games, you wouldn't like know, right? But it's like it's fun to go back to these old environments and like hear the music and everything, right? But also be like, it's fun what ifs, right? What if this had happened in Dragon Quest 3? What if this had happened in 5, right? So on and so forth.
And Saf mentioned the 2D in those sections. You could play the whole game in 2D in the definitive edition.
Right.
Yeah. So all that having been said, I could talk forever. But where do you want to put it on the list, Seth?
On the list, I want to put it. It's safe to say somewhere in the 20s, right? Like we all agree on that. It seems like a reasonable place to put it. Somewhere in the 20s.
I would put it in the Mother 3 Earthbound range.
Me too.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Sure.
Mhm.
The only problem is deciding whether or not I like it more than Mother 3.
Sure. That's a tough question.
We didn't really talk about the bad things this game does. I'll rattle off a few because I have them written down.
Okay.
Go for it.
The battle menu system is a little bit weird because you have to have the items in the person's inventory instead of like in the party bag.
Yeah.
That's super dumb. I don't get it. The combat itself is kind of simplistic. It never really ramps up. It never gets difficult until like 80% through the game.
Yeah.
Unless you specifically put on like additional difficulty modifiers.
Yeah.
Which like, if it's your first time playing it, would you really do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the silent protagonist, kind of awkward. There are a lot of moments where he should have a reaction and he just doesn't, and it's fucking weird.
He's just there. Yeah. I mean,
just to add to like the difficulty part, the one frustrating thing that I have about the difficulty is that you can make it or it can get challenging. Sorry, but the challenge comes from having like extensive knowledge of every single ability and item that could help you in regards to this, because the boss battles that you face, especially if you want to get like unlock everything, like if you want to do like the trials I can't remember what the area was, but where Rab was training in the trials.
Yeah, the post game stuff. Yeah,
it's not Shangri-La. What is it? It's something. It's based off Shangri-La, but
it's based off Shangri-La. But I can't remember what it was called. But if you want to complete that, and if you want to like unlock every single one, which means like going through the super bosses again, like you need to have like a proper extensive knowledge of like, okay, what items are there, what items are useful for you, what weaknesses the bosses have, and it can get so frustrating trying to like trial and basically do a full trial and error type situation, trying to figure out like what would be the best combination to win this.
Yeah, I think for super bosses that's okay, right? Because super bosses are a test. They're supposed to be like the mastery test, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, like Draconic mode, I think is like neat in that like it has a bunch of toggles, but I wish there was a middle ground, right?
Yes.
Because the base game is easy, which I think is ultimately fine, right? You don't have to grind to beat Dragon Quest 11.
No.
But
which is good. I mean, in comparison to some of the other games in the series.
Sure. But whatchamacallit? Yeah.
Sorry, the difficulty modifier, the S adds a very funny one. Sorry, this is a complete aside and not at all about the list, but where the townspeople will start lying to you.
Yeah.
So like when they give you directions, like they'll tell you the wrong thing, or because normally NPCs are just there to like be helpful and give you hints and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's a mode that like makes them like actually like sometimes lie to you is one of the funniest difficulty modifiers I've ever seen. Like that's so good.
Yeah. It's a nice retouch.
Yeah. So going over those negatives, right? Where are you looking at? So we were saying around whether or not you like it more than Mother 3, right? So
actually, you know what? I'll put it below Mother 3, like because even though like if it's just to me it's like even though like it's trying to be a return to form, I feel as though like there are still tropes there that doesn't feel as though it belongs in today's environment. Like the silent protagonist, for example, that still feels quite weak. And I feel so like stuff like that. I think that there's still room for improvement.
Like Lucas
it is
doesn't talk
very
about
strange. It is very, very strange that
especially
he's
if
silent.
especially if it's something that's really, really character driven and really.
I mean, to be fair, you play a lot of Mother 3 as Lucas, and like, well, Mother 3 has that where whoever's the main character just sort of puts on the quiet hat, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but also, I mean, there are moments in Mother 3 where you don't have to speak to know what he's feeling. You know what I mean?
Sure,
it's your feeling.
Yeah, they expressed the Mother 3. They expressed like through animations and the sprites. They did a decent job with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Dragon Quest XI, they pan to this guy's face and it's just dead. Like, he has no reaction.
Yeah.
Sun and Moon had that problem. It would be like, the world is ending, and your guy's just like smiling.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're not. It's not Pokemon. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Fucking Sun and Moon, man, was so bad.
Fucking Sun and Moon,
was
Sword and
also
Shield's the exact
hilarious,
same thing.
But that said, the other characters in the party carry the fuck out of it. Like,
yeah.
I think I would put it above Mother 3. I think it's... There are some moments in this game where really, really fucking strong.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this one then. Fair enough.
We're all good below Undertale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There it is in all caps. Number 18, Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Jesus Christ. All right. So that is where it is going on the list. Surrounding it, 16 on the list, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, 17, Undertale, 18, Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, 19, Mother 3, 20, Earthbound. We did it. That is the list. That is the podcast. Who wants the plugs in the final phrase?
That little list segment was a sneak peek at the upcoming Game Club Extra.
You know, a little bit.
If we get to it, maybe.
Will, Ills, and Saf all talking about a JRPG.
Yeah, I'm slowly making my way through, speaking.
I can't wait.
All right. So, but who wants to do plugs? Who wants to do final phrase?
I can do both if you want me to.
Brandon.
I'll take us out.
What?
See, you took us out last week.
You do this every week.
I do this every week.
Brandon, have at it.
I'll do the plugs.
I'm doing both.
No,
hey.
Brandon, you take. I'll do the plugs this week. How about that?
You do the plugs? All right,
let's change it up. You know.
All right.
Okay. So if you like this podcast, I cannot believe you made it to the end. But you know what? That means you clearly love this podcast. So you should subscribe to us. You can catch this podcast every Monday, or every other Thursday. We also do a Jump Up Supercast Game Club. Both these are on the same feed. You can find us on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on iTunes, pretty much wherever you can find a podcast. If you're listening to this on something else and you want it on another service, we're not there yet, maybe let us know. Maybe we'll try to get on, if you really want us on Spotify, tell us, okay? We'll look into that. But the Game Club, all these lads over here, specifically Brandon, Noah, and Ills, get together, they talk about a game, and they add to the list. Very important for the canon of the list. So be sure to check that out. What did you guys talk about last time, Brandon?
The last episode?
Yes.
Was
Haunting Ground.
Haunting Ground by Capcom.
The next episode coming up is Monster Tale.
So be sure to check that out every other Thursday. And then we're also on social media. We've been streaming on Twitch, believe it or not. We're actually using that thing. We've been streaming Fall Guys. I know kind of everyone's streaming that right now, but ours is the best Fall Guys stream, bar none.
True, it is.
Like I've watched every single one of them, and ours is the best.
Especially since I'm usually the one capturing the footage, and I win all the time. So yeah.
Brandon, fun fact, has the most wins in Fall Guys ever. That's just a fact, and you can't fact check that unless you watch the stream. Okay,
that's true.
So yeah, Brandon is the champion of Fall Guys, so be sure to check us out on Twitch.
Official champion of podcast, Brandon.
We're also on other social medias. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I think our most important one, though, is our Twitter. You can find all of these, by the way, by going to twitch.tv or twitter.com or facebook.com/JumpUpSupercast. Just search Jump Up Supercast. But on the Twitter, give us a follow. You'll be able to find out when podcasts go live, when game clubs go live, when we're streaming, staff's random thoughts of the day. You know, there's plenty of stuff going on Twitter. So check that out. Otherwise, I believe that about covers the plugs. Brandon, why don't you take us out?
All right. I'm just gonna say, look forward to. We're gonna do a little special this year. You know, we're winding down. We're in the second half of the year, and you know, we've been playing a lot of Game Club games, and I'm just gonna say it now. We're gonna do a special episode, probably early 2021, where we go over kind of like a best of an award show for the Game Club of 2020. So we're going to talk about like different categories and what some of our favorite times, and just relive some of the moments that we had throughout the Game Club throughout 2020. So that should be a fun time. So, you know, listen to the Game Club. There's a lot of cool games in there, Mother 3 included. Just games that, you know, maybe you haven't played, and you might find a new favorite. So that's really what it's all about, man. Playing video games, finding some new favorites. They don't have to be the newest. They can be old games too. There's just so many good games out there. So give it a listen. I'm sure you'll find something you'll like. And while you're at it, hey Nintendo, you know what? You don't have to do a direct this year if you give me one thing. Localize Mother 3. God damn it.
Yes. Yes. Join me.
Still fighting the good fight, huh?